is, everybody? I can't believe it's our last one of the year. Thank you all of our regulars who are joining us. Really, you guys have been joining us week after week, and we so appreciate you. And because it's our last one of the year, I asked our panelists if I could spend a couple minutes longer today, in an introduction. We started these Wednesday webinars, which, as you guys know, we do every Wednesday at noon. And we started these when the whole nation went into quarantine in March. And they were started because I helped lead 8 brokerages here in Washington. And when everything was going into quarantine, we didn't know what was going to come next. And what I knew is that I had to kick into gear, and I had to figure out a way to train our agents in real time what was working. So I started just texting, calling, messaging, whatever it took to figure out what agents had sold homes that week. And remember, this was in March. This is right when it was all starting. So I started finding agents who were selling homes. What are you doing? What are you saying? What are the objections you're getting? And I from the very beginning, I focused on listings. And so then I would bring them on and we would broadcast them to all of our brokerage agents. Then in April, me and a group of girls were invited to, ladies, I should say women, were invited to take over a Facebook group, the Pivot Shift Ahead Real Estate Facebook group. So we came on, a group of us have a company called Amplify, and 4 of us have a podcast called the Empire Building Podcast. I suppose that's a shameless plug for it, but we got invited to take over the Facebook group that week. And so as part of that, we had to fill it with content. I just thought, well, why don't I broadcast my Wednesday webinar and help with content? And we got such great response. We just broadcasted it the next week and broadcasted it the next week. And then we didn't stop. And pretty soon our audience grew and it grew. And we now have real estate agents that watch these every week all over the world. We have real estate agents in the Middle East, in Europe, in Africa, in South America, in Asia. It's been unbelievable. It gives me goosebumps to just think about it. And I know that there's a lot of you guys that are pretty faithfully here almost every week. And if you're not, you tend to watch or listen to the replays. So before we bring on our panelists today, I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank everybody. It's been, I'm going to choke up, but it's been quite a year. Who knew? Who would have expected that a little bit of training for our brokers would have turned into thousands and thousands of views every week? I wouldn't have guessed it. And just it would have turned into something that's giving so much back to the agent community, which is really what the goal of this is. These are always meant to be highly tactical. My mission statement on our Wednesday webinars is that everybody watching and listening leaves these and can implement 1 to 3 things within 1 hour of watching them. So they're very tactical. These I always choose agents that are on the ground running, that are doing the work, that are actually in the trenches every single day on purpose. I scour the country. I mean, you can ask Sue. I'm just constantly, who do you know doing this?
I have to say, you're amazing. You are amazing. I mean, what you have done and the audience that you have built and the changes. I mean, I really feel like the industry pivoted in big part because of you, Via, and everything that you've done.
Thank you. I did. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everybody, though. All of the support has been awesome. Thank you for inviting people. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for increasing the audience. Our mission statement is really to give back to our agent community and to be of value to the agent community. That's it. That's our mission statement. I mean, of course, like right now, I'm hiring a team lead. I'm hiring someone to lead one of our offices. Of course, in the back of my mind, I think someone watching this is going to see me or the panelists or the people I have on, and they're going to be attracted to that. But the real reason we do this is to give back to the agent community. So this was one of the hardest panels I've ever procured. And the reason it was such a hard panel is that this is about getting off-market properties. And everybody needs inventory. I don't care what market you're in. Everybody here needs inventory. So I must have called or reached out to 15 or 20 agents around the country, very, very high producing agents. And these are the 3 that I felt were doing it at a high enough level to teach you all. So I am very, very pleased to introduce today Sue Adler, Bentley Pugh, and Nicole Dankworth. And I am going to spend just a brief moment. I want to give everybody your background, guys, because the fact of the matter is is that each one of you has incredible credentials, even if we weren't talking about this topic. But because of this topic, I think credentials are important. So Bentley, I'm going to start with you because these two ladies have had the opportunity to grace my Wednesday webinars before, and this is your first one. And Bentley, you've been highly successful. I think what's really cool about you is that I'm just looking this up right now. You have an interesting business model. So your focus is the acquisition, development, and sale of off-market properties in the greater Seattle area. So basically what you do is you do off-market property acquisition, and then you work with investors and you develop and you kind of do everything in the life cycle from land to finished product. And then of course you list the finished product. Is that a pretty good description for everybody?
Yep, that's correct.
And you've been doing this for almost 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And on a typical year, Bentley, how many sort of units or, give us an idea of what a typical year looks like from a production standpoint.
Typically we, on an acquisition, we're doing, I would say 30 to 50 acquisitions. And then, because we focus on townhome projects, it's a sort of a multiplier. So if you buy one project, you get 4 or 5 listings, and so we feed our pipeline, of course, first, and then the overflow, we wholesale off or sell to, other investors, and then we get all those listings. So you do one deal and you get, 3 to 5 listings out of it. Yeah.
You've been highly, highly successful. And I think we're really lucky to have you today to talk about, some of your tactics.
Thank you.
And we really, really appreciate it. Nicole, rock star, you've been in real estate for 30 seconds and you did 25 million your first year, your rookie year in real estate, 25 million in production. I'm in awe of you, and you're in the Seattle area as well. I think when I think about you, I think you've got 2 things that you specialize in. You have a really strong resale business, and you also have a really strong and growing builder business as well, right? So tell us a little bit about what you're doing to match make properties, to give them a tease of what they're going to learn from you today.
I guess it has been like property matchmaker. I kind of have a list of who would sell and who wants to sell, and then who wants to buy what. And I've just been linking them up, and it ranges from coveted neighborhood where nothing comes up much, or, certain projects for developers. So yeah, it's just connecting people.
Yeah, it's really been awesome to watch. Sue Adler, full disclosure, one of my BFFs. And I'm always so happy whenever I get to see Sue.
Me too.
On Zoom. Sue just had a birthday. We had so much fun. Sue, I hosted my very first Zoom.
That was
party.
So fun.
It was really fun.
That was really fun. Thank you for that.
That was a good experience for all. Sue, you've been the #1 real estate agent in New Jersey for 15 years now, I think, right? 14 or 15 years now. Is that right?
2013. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, I mean,
in the region since 2005. Yeah.
In the region since 2005. And I just want to be clear, in the state of New Jersey, Sue's been the #1 agent since 2013. So, I mean, we can just end the intro there, but we're not. We're not. Because I think what's been just amazing to watch Sue is as she's pivoted and grown her business, $250 million business, pretty stable every year. What I've seen Sue do is completely pivot and not get comfortable and not rest on her laurels and not continue to do what she's done, over and over again. What I've watched Sue do is just continually push the envelope and pivot. And I think that what you're doing, Sue, with your seller workshops, your virtual seller workshops that we're going to talk about today, has been nothing short of stunning. And where most of us are, working our buns off to go do one listing presentation, and that's the highlight of our work week, you're actually doing anywhere from 5 to 20 listing presentations at once, essentially, in your workshops. And now you're using those to what I described, to you after our prep call was you kind of are doing your own MLS. It's like a little mini Sue MLS, where you've got all your buyers, and all your sellers, and you're bringing them together. And now you're at a point where roughly, whatever the percentage is, but maybe up to a quarter of your business is off market. Is that right?
Yeah, a little less. It's less than that, but yeah. But it's significant. It's significantly up this year for sure.
Yeah. So we have 3 really great perspectives today on what people are doing to continue to sell homes in an environment where we don't have a lot of inventory. And after hearing their intros, you can see why I chose these guys, right? Every one of them has a slightly different twist on it. And it's pretty impressive. So Sue, I do want to start with you. I want to start with your seller workshops. And, if you could kind of walk us through what they are and what you're doing in general, then we can kind of work into how we're matchmaking.
Okay. So, well, a couple of years ago, Via and I together went actually to visit Frank from Viral Marketing. This is how it all started, because I had the vision of doing seller workshops, but I wanted help with marketing them. And so we walked away with a plan Via had, and this is actually when Via left and went to the then Kinney company. So we were kind of changing things up at the same time. It was awesome. That was a pivoting weekend for sure. And, so we decided to make it part of our brand of everything we're doing, because part of our core values, a big part is educating our clients so that they can make, an educated decision, basically just providing them with as much information as possible. And so we put the workshop in all of our marketings, our just sold postcards, our neighborhood letters. We had flyers at open houses if a neighbor walked into an open house. So everything that we, the ISAs, when they're making phone calls, if the seller is not ready, they would be invited to the workshop. We put it on social media. So we have a whole system that has grown through the years. It's now been a couple of years, and it's a long-term game with this. So you have some people you want to convert at the workshop. We were doing them at the local libraries when we were doing them in person. March, we had to pivot, and we now do them on Zoom, and we do breakout sessions within the Zoom with the different attendees. And it's actually been pretty great. We've been doing them way more often because it's just much more convenient. And I switch it up so I can just show, if I have more people on from a specific town, I can switch it up and just show some of my listings in that town and show what we're doing, and or examples of staging before and after. So there's a lot more flexibility when you're doing it online, just sharing the data, what's going on in the market that week. I just have all the data right up there on the screen, and I can just screen share. And so it's really that's been game changing in terms of getting listings, because we keep in our Slack channel, we're talking about matchmaking, we keep a list of what our buyers are looking for. The buyer agents will go on and put what their buyers are looking for. And the ISAs then get on the phone and they start calling around neighborhoods to find houses for those buyers. And then we also keep a list of when the ISAs make phone calls, these people would sell, but they don't want to list yet. So we call those people and we sell some of those off market. So it's just this, similar to what Nicole was talking about, but we do that through our Slack channel.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit because I've had the opportunity. Yeah, you and I happened to be there when this kind of came into inception. This idea was born, right? In Frank Hussett's, and I've watched it from then to now. So I want to just go back and reiterate what you're doing. The first thing is that you are marketing it everywhere. It's on pretty much every channel you're doing. And the way you're marketing it is you're basically saying, if you're thinking about selling, if you have any real estate plans over the next year or two, come join us for an informational, seller workshop. And I want to be clear that that's kind of the call to action that she's doing. So on anyone, and then Sue, as you know, I went on one to observe it. And what I noticed is that there's all sorts of, I think the one I was on, I think there might've been 7 homeowners on there.
That was really early on in our virtual process, I think, when you were on.
It was great. I mean, it was really great. And I was like, okay, like 1 or 2 are clearly ready to go. The other ones are kind of, anywhere from maybe later in the year to a year out, which is perfect, right? And what I noticed you guys did is you use breakout rooms really well,
Yeah.
where you kind of broke them up with different people like you or your, different sales agents so that you could kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of close them, or at least figure out what road you were going to take them down.
Right.
Are they going to be a nurture? Are they going to be like let's make an appointment, go get your house, whatever. And so I want to be clear that I think part of what you've done is you just use that as a massive seller funnel.
Yes,
and you just
absolutely.
learned how to use Zoom really well. Like you're maximizing a medium to its highest potential in doing these.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to add in that I know that one of our colleagues is doing is she's essentially doing what you're doing, only she's doing pre-recorded content. So they sort of load in pre-recorded content, and then a number of her team are on there live to respond to the chat and to kind of pop on and follow up.
Mm-hmm.
But the team lead, the content has been pre-established. So there's different ways to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong.
Yeah. I think the reason we wouldn't do that is because, well, first of all, I think it is a little less interactive when you're doing that. Yeah. And we don't want to do it as a webinar. We want to do it as we found we've had a lot more interaction when we do it as a meeting instead of a webinar. Mm-hmm. Second of all, you want to see where the addresses of where people are coming from and gear it towards those towns. We handle a lot of different towns, so we want to make sure that we're gearing it towards the audience that's there. So if we notice that our audience is more entry level, or people have been in their homes for many, many, many years, we want to make sure that we're gearing it towards that versus, sometimes we might have more of a luxury audience, and then we want to make sure we throw some luxury in. So it just depends who the audience is. So it's easy to hide slides. So it's basically the same presentation, but hiding a lot of slides or pulling up different data.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, I think the other cool thing you do that you touched on a little bit, maybe you could dive in a little bit more detail, is you have your teams on Slack, and you have essentially a would buy and a would sell channel. And so if a homeowner, is like, look, I would sell if, I don't want to list it, but I would sell if I could get, whatever my price is. And it would be relatively easy. I don't want to sign up. I don't have to clean my house. And then you have this list of buyers. And when you match make them, I believe you get on the phone with the buyer's agent and with the homeowner, and you kind of try to orchestrate that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Exactly. That's correct.
Yeah. I just wanted to be sure everybody caught that, because I think that's a really smart way to do it. When I had my team, and my team was a little bigger, we started off with a whiteboard, and then we moved to Slack to the exact same process, Sue, where we kind of had that ability to look up.
Yeah.
What I think you do that's really good is that you are directly involved, though, in the phone calls and making sure that you're holding on to your homeowners tight, so that if this particular buyer doesn't work out, that you're still maintaining that relationship
and developing that relationship further. Exactly. Because otherwise, if the buyer agent calls and then gives the feedback, then that's it. Like, what happened to that person? We just lose. You always want to keep control over that seller, in terms of the process.
Yeah, that's really, really great. Thank you for sharing. I know we'll have a lot of questions, and we can come back to that. Bentley, so excited to talk to you about what you're doing. So, this is part of your business model. It always has been. And you do, I know, a lot of different methods. So why don't you walk us through what it looks like when you are scouring a neighborhood looking for off-market property?
Yeah, I mean, I think originally it started, you're just driving, down the street, and you're like, ooh, that property is a little bit rough, and it just has a lot of deferred maintenance or paint, or, in the summertime, lawns are overgrown or whatnot. And so we would just literally, some people call it driving for dollars, but you drive up and down sort of, farm areas, and you're writing down addresses. And there's great apps out there now where you can literally GPS, and it pulls up the tax records, and then we, write those addresses down or put them in an Excel sheet, and then we start, prospecting or mailing them. So that's sort of organically how it started. And then we sort of started with niche lists with, probate sales, things like that. Go to the courthouse, gather those. And then, Seattle is, has a ton of rezoning going on in Shoreline with all this mass transit come in. So anything that's sort of underutilized, we've targeted. And there's all sorts of different kinds of lists, but we're plugging lists into our pipeline that we want to, build, or areas we want to build at. So
what app, do you remember the name of the app? I'm having some people ask.
Yeah, it's actually an amazing app. So it's about $100 a year, and it's called Land Glide.
Land Glide. Glide. Maybe.
Yeah. And this is, and they scrape all the tax records nationally. And so you can just be driving around and it pulls up the tax records on everything. And it's a game changer.
That's awesome.
So, so when you're driving for dollars, this is you knowing the area really well and basically identifying sub neighborhoods, streets, neighborhoods. You know when an area is hot, but now you're like, what's a good street? What's a kind of a good area? You're just trying to figure out where you might be able to get some teardowns, right? An assemblage of land. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's, with real estate and investing, it's just sort of buy, right, and add value. So you have to, target things or properties that you can get at a discount, or maybe they're deferred enough so that's what the highest and best use is, or that's what the value is. Mm-hmm. So we do that.
Okay. So you drive around, you identify, certain properties, you've got your target list. What do you do with that list? What comes next?
Well, I think it just depends. We sort of leverage our time and money and all of that. So what we'll do is we'll send out, depending on what the list is, if it's something that we really want to build or rezone, we'll send out letters because those are a higher response rate. If it's sort of testing out a sample list, we'll do postcards because they're, a quarter of the price, but they're a quarter of the response rate as well. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is people will respond and we get their numbers, so we don't have to pay for their numbers, and then we stick them in the database. If it's a list like a rezone list that we're targeting, we'll just pull up all the numbers and we'll just start, touching on, meaning, more touches as far as we'll hit them with letters, we'll cold call them. So once they're in the system, follow-up is just, that's the game changer right there. A great follow-up system. So ringless voicemail. I mean, you can load them in there. It's 4 cents for each voicemail left. And then if it's a property that, as we've done, this sort of campaign of, 5 or 6 touches, we'll literally just go knock on the door. Or if we want the property, we'll just go knock on the door.
So, so when we did our prep call, some of the things that I wrote down is when you send postcards out, they're cheaper, but your response rate is give or take about 0.5%. When you send a letter, you get about a 2% response rate. And response rate reading, they're just contacting you. They're saying, hey, I want more information. Right?
Yep.
And then when you send what you call your mass letters of intent, you're at a 25 to 30% response rate. Can you tell us a little bit about what are on those letters to get such a high rate? I
think that just, you're showing your cards, you have a price, we put a proof of funds out there. Anything that just looks. You're
sending them an offer. I want to be clear. You're sending them an offer to their property, essentially, with proof of funds in some cases.
Yeah, but it's a 1-page deal instead of like a 10-page deal, just for time. So, if people want to sell, because it's always about timing, regardless if it's a listing or a retail deal or an off-market deal, you just have to connect at the right time or have enough amount of touches so you're right in front of them. So it's the same, but we have a 1-page. We send that out, it's handwritten with different fonts and it just looks unique. And, there's so many different fonts out there where like, it looks like it's smudged, a lot of car dealerships have them. And I'm not talking like probably like 5 years ago, there was written fonts, but now it's like, they look real where there's smudge lines on them. Or, we get calls back from just different types of stamps, whether it's Batman or, you would be surprised why people connect with us, and it's all of the above.
So basically this is what I'm taking out of this whole webinar today. Use Batman stamps. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else, that's what I'm getting out of it.
Yeah. You just, some type of connection with these folks and constantly stay in front of them and follow up.
You know what I'm hearing, Bentley? And I just want to kind of pull this out and make sure everyone else is hearing it. To me, you do a lot of work up front, call it R&D, call it whatever you want, but you do a lot of work up front deciding where your target's going to be. And then what I'm hearing you say is you are really locked and loaded on that target sub area. And you're getting him at all angles, right? Phone, slide broadcast voicemails or whatever you're using, sending them potentially, one-page offers, letters of intent, door knocking. Is that what you say that this is? You're just very focused. You have investors, or you yourself are an investor who want to buy in that area. So you have the courage of your convictions, so to speak, and you're just like going for this one area.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously didn't start off like that, but start off with just sort of like a farm list, and then in the zoning, and then you start calling them or whatnot. But now, when we're putting budgets and everything together for next year, I mean, we have probably the first 6 months just loaded up and ready to go. I mean, we have different campaigns going. The sales team knows what's being dropped, so they know what type of responses that will be coming in and when. I mean, we drop them on Fridays, so they hit sort of Mondays or Tuesdays. I mean, it's pretty calculated now.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. How many letters would you say? How many thousand letters on a given month would you say you send out?
I mean, it varies. Like I think we're sending out probably about, our goal is to send out about 800 letters of intent a month, and then there's probably like, we were sending out like 10,000 postcards. I mean, we're constantly experimenting and getting better at our numbers and knowing our numbers. And especially when you start spending a lot of money, you have to know your numbers and measure it. So, but we definitely, we're probably up to, I would say, probably like 10,000 right now, just constantly mailing.
So, I mean, what I'm taking from that is if you're getting a 0.5% response rate on postcards, that's about 5 respondents per 1,000 postcards, give or take. If you're getting about 2% for a letter, and you're sending out, 1,000 letters, that's, 20. I mean, so if you're sending out 800 letters of intent and you're getting anywhere from 20 to 30%, we can all do the math on that too. You are busy working these leads. And then I'm assuming you have a CRM or something you're putting these leads into that you're kind of dripping and nurturing and that you're able to follow up with. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we use Salesforce.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Wow. Really, really impressive how you're doing it to scale. Do you work with, tell us a little bit about how you get the builders that you work with.
Well, you can actually, I'm a part of the master builders up here in Seattle or King and Snohomish County. So I go to those events, all the networking events you go to. You can actually scrape the MLS with cash buyers. I mean, before, when we used to do it, we would just have like 5 or 10, builders that we would, work with. And what I learned about a year ago is like, you just need a bigger pool so you don't lose out on those other deals that you've been working 3 or 4 years on or whatnot. Because you're calling somebody and they're on vacation and they're like, hey man, I need you to jump on this deal. And they're like, and so now we sort of blast it out to everybody, and what's nice is you're like, I'll never sell that. And now we sell it, and that's made a huge difference with my sales team, because now they're constantly getting paid. And so the MLS, I think that we're just active in the community. So we're going to projects all the time. I've been doing it a long time, but, you definitely still need to be building relationships with all those folks. So they're, loyal and pick up your phone.
Yeah, for sure.
Calls, things like that.
So we have a lot of different ranges of agents watching and listening to this. So for those agents, I don't think this is something a brand new out of the gate agent will probably start. I think you need to get some experience a little bit first. But when we get agents who have been in the business 1+ years, and they're kind of in those early days, Bentley, how would you recommend they start this? Because you're pretty scaled up. Let's bring it back to the beginning days. How would a newer agent start this?
I think you just call your title company and say, I'm looking for these types of properties, and I mean, there's a lot of information out there with Facebook groups or investment groups or webinars, or there's all sorts of stuff out there. So I think what's important is people just got to figure out a niche that they like and enjoy. I mean, for me, more passionate and excited about the investment and off-market side than just doing traditional residential real estate. So that's sort of how I lean this way. But you can just call up the title company and get a form of zoning. There's another way where a lot of properties have improvement value, so they have the land value, improvement value. So if there's a small improvement value, you can target, the minimum improvement value in Seattle is 1,000. So you could just do a search you get the list and you search that and you just, that's a list. There's, there's all sorts of lists out there.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of builders as well. And so for all of you watching, kind of wondering how you actually get the builders, I can share with you a very easy script that in most major metropolitan markets works really well. Certainly here in Seattle, any tight inventory market, it works well. And, I basically call the builder. I say, hey, who's in charge of your land acquisitions? A small builder, it'll just be the builder. As they get to medium and large size, they'll have a land act person that they'll send you to. And you call them and you just, say, hi, this is Via Williams. And I'm a real estate agent here in Seattle. And I'm getting more and more access to some interesting off-market properties that I think might be a fit for you because I've seen that you've been building in the area. Wanted to know what your criteria is for land acquisitions. Are you looking? If I did find you off-market property, would you list the home with me? And I just start going through a whole series of questions. I have them all typed out. I just go through a whole series of questions and then they get on my list, and then I start calling them when I get these properties, however I'm seeking the property, I start calling them and they love you for it. They want you to find them off-market property. Getting the builder and the investor isn't the hard part. It's getting the property. So I don't want anybody here to feel like they can't get the builder. They will gladly do it. If you're a new agent, they may say to you, no, you can't list this property. You don't have enough credibility or experience yet. Then I want you to take that. I don't want you to say, okay, and accept that. What I want you to say is, great, I understand that. Can I partner with, someone who does have experience and then the next time potentially earn your business to get those list backs? And you keep working at it. If you have to partner with someone to start off with, that's fine. But if you're the person that's sourcing them the land, eventually you want to work up to getting the listings on the back end. Anything to add to that, Bentley?
No, it's pretty simple. If you have a good deal, they want to be your friend. The roles are completely reversed. They want to be at the top of your list. It's all about buying right. And if you had to have a discounted property, the roles just sort of switch as far as that goes.
100%. Well, Bentley, I know we're going to get more questions for you. I'm going to move on to Nicole, which, again, I love this panel today because Nicole, you've got a different model, right? But it's also, there's elements that are the same too. So why don't you walk us through what you're doing right now to get off-market sales?
Yeah, and something that you were just talking about as like a newer agent and building relations with builders and such. I created about a year ago, like a dream list of developers, builders I wanted to work with. And I would hold back some of my bigger, better off-market deals and bring it to these guys. And it's worked well. I have about 5 of them now that I write up all of their deals. It's insane. And it's gained me so much business by bringing them value first. So I think that's a huge end for a new agent. And how you find those off-market deals is a little bit harder. I've really put myself out there. A lot of them come from the neighborhood I grew up in. And it's like friends and family and now other agents. And people send me stuff all day long. I just tied up something right now. But it will be like a hoarder's house or maybe an older couple, especially with COVID, they don't want to list. But I know that such and such would buy it. And it's just linking people up and keeping really good track of what comes in and who you have.
I think it's really important to remind everybody, Nicole, you're in your 3rd year. Is that right?
It just started my 3rd year.
Just started. So Nicole, the reason I wanted Nicole on, guys, is, she's doing the level of production and she's here talking to the nation right now, to the world on this webinar. And she just started her 3rd year of real estate. You don't have to wait too long. Probably not your first transaction, but you don't have to wait too long. She didn't. She was doing this pretty early on. So Nicole, You have essentially a database, just like Sue has, of would sell and would buy. Could you go into that a little bit? What are you keeping track of? How are you keeping sellers interested and buyers interested? Just kind of walk us through what that process is.
Sure. So I have like would sell, maybe they would list, or some that are completely off market for whatever reason, right? And then just buyers list. I constantly keep in touch and I constantly shop around what I have. So like the one that I just tied up right now is a big warehouse, and I've been trying for a year. I've brought him numerous offers. He was kind of unrealistic, and we had a big conversation yesterday, and I said, look, commercial has changed. This is what I can get for you. I would take it and run. And I gave him all my reasons why we're tying it up. So I knew I had this guy over here that really wanted to buy it. And so it was kind of, and I'll represent both sides, which is even cooler. But it's just kind of being that like middle ground and getting both people into the spot where it makes sense for each party. And yeah, it's super fun.
I want to drill down a little bit because I know agents really well. And so it sounds great. And you're making it sound so easy. And I appreciate that about you. And I know all of a sudden our little brains with all the squirrel stuff happening, all of a sudden there's 3 properties off market. There's 5, right, Sue? There's 10, there's 20, there's 30. And then we've got a couple buyers, and then there's 5, and then there's 10. How do you keep track of all of this? And then do you visit that list periodically to kind of just check in on people? Like tell us all about that.
Yeah. So you know what? At first it was all in my brain and I dropped the ball some, and that was a bummer. So now it's very detailed. And I have relationships with these people. And so I feel like I have a system of checking in, but I do it it's not pushy. It's, seeing how they are, has anything changed, or, trying to, if I have kind of a tough off market one, bringing, whenever I can get a chance, new clients to do a walkthrough, or just showing them that I am working on getting it sold for them. I want it to sell. So yeah. And oftentimes if we've done a few client walkthroughs and we're not kind of making the connection with what they want price wise, if it's a good one to list, I'll suggest that we get it on the market to get them top dollar, and things that we can do to get it ready for that. And I probably check in every couple of weeks.
Every couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I do want to go back a little bit to something that you glossed over. I'm going to drill down on a couple of things with you. One of them is actually sourcing the off-market properties. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that. I know that pre-COVID you door knocked, right? You door knocked. And so tell us a little bit about what that looks like. What would you say? I'm assuming that's from a buyer need.
Yeah. It's different so there was a couple of blocks that were getting zoning changes, and I knew my favorite developers wanted in on those blocks. And so for those ones, I would call, I would door knock, get to know the homeowners. I actually sold like 2 in a couple of weeks on one street. They actually both really had wanted to move and were excited about this developer brings strong offers. They had received all kinds of things in the mail, lowball offers and stuff. So then when I came with this decent offer that could really close on their terms and quick, they loved it. And I would knock and just tell them, and I only do if I really do have a buyer or someone pretty interested. So for the developer standpoint, I would go and bring that kind of information that I had and be honest, like, did you know your block's changing a little bit? I have a builder. He does most of the stuff in West Seattle. You've probably seen some of it. And then we start talking about that. He'd love to buy your home for top market value if you're interested. And we would chat, and my developer would walk through and get to know them too. And he's super personable. And yeah, it works pretty well. But then for a buyer, like I have a luxury buyer right now, and I actually have a new girl working with me who's amazing on the phone and sourcing off market too. We've gotten into this neighborhood where only like 1 listing becomes available a year. Mm-hmm. She's gotten us into 2 in the last couple of weeks, and she dialed, and we had a whole script for that we have a client looking to buy in that neighborhood, very specific, like what he wanted, would they be interested in selling it all? And these 2 people were. So we got invited into their homes, did a walkthrough, brought our buyer. we now have another client that's going to take a look as well this week. And it sounds like both of them will turn into listings pretty shortly here if this next buyer doesn't want to purchase either of them. So it's just getting that in and getting that connection and that FaceTime.
That's fantastic. By the way, we have a whole bunch of questions. We're gonna answer them all, everybody. Just wanted to follow up on with Sue and Nicole. Do you guys have them sign any type of a listing agreement or any type of an agreement when you're nurturing them and their would sell?
I have not. I probably should, but I haven't had anyone cut me out. I feel like bringing them value and being authentic and building relationships, they don't want to cut you out. Most people are good people, and I've been working off of that.
Yeah. What about you, Sue?
So we definitely do, because I don't want my buyer agents giving out these addresses without something signed, and we have totally again lost control over that. So we have, if it's just initially, they're usually saying, well, if you have a buyer, so we'll do a commission letter initially, or it could be just an exclusive where we can market it but not put it in the MLS. Mm-hmm. And we keep a list not just of what our buyers are looking for, but what anybody who's shown any of our listings, all the other agents. So we kind of know who is buyers and what price range, and we can get it sold before hitting the MLS if they really kind of want to do it quietly, even though it is a shared exclusive. So that would be a full commission. It's more legwork. So that's what we tell the client, that it's more legwork, so the commission doesn't change on that. And so, yeah, I would never, Nicole, you have to be really careful with that, because once you get burned once, you just don't do that again. I mean, most people are good people, but you do have to protect yourself with that.
I do make agents sign NDAs. So there is that. If I disclose some of my off markets, I make if there's another agent involved, I'll make them sign an NDA before they show it, but that's all I've done.
Yeah.
Well, remember, the number one rule in real estate, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So I mean, it is a good practice. I think most MLSs, by the way, have two types of listing agreements. They have the exclusive one, and then they have the non-exclusive one. So I believe, don't quote me on this, there's a whole bunch of people from my state here, they'll correct me, but I believe that's the 1B. So we would all use the 1A in Washington, but I believe the B, or in all MLSs have it, is a non-exclusive. So basically it says, if we find you a buyer, then you would pay us a commission. And that way you could potentially bring in other real estate agents' buyers too, which I think is great.
And then what we usually do is, if we sign an exclusive, that will expire, there'll be an expiration date in there, or upon entry into MLS, because sometimes at that point they say, well, let's just put it in the MLS and see if we can get it sold. So you want to always leave that option open, and then have the MLS agreement there for them to sign as the next step.
Yeah, smart. Okay, so Sue, let's stay on you a minute. And I know we talked about this, but maybe you can drill down a little bit. How are you getting sellers to attend your workshops? Laura's also asking, do you have a registration for the meeting? Are you giving them a direct link? Is there a generic registration page that you're sending them to?
So if you go to sueadler.com/HSW, you'll see our workshop. And we put the dates on there. So then we'll market each specific date. Sometimes they're town specific, sometimes they're general, sometimes we're doing a luxury. So they vary. And we market based on who our target is. So I sit down with my marketing manager every week, and we'll send out the neighborhood letters. Will typically correspond, that go out, the dates that they arrive will correspond with the workshop that we want to market for. So we have, for example, tonight is Maplewood. We're sold out. We're sold out. They're free, but 50 people. And so that we sent out letters. We sent out neighborhood letters. The ISAs were on the phones making calls. We put it on Facebook. We just had a ton of closings in Maplewood. So just listed, just sold like crazy there. And so it's just hitting all at once really, really hard. And we'll just do that with just different areas. And we do our general ones too, not just town specific. Most of the ones we do are the general ones. And everybody's marketing them. So everybody on the team is marketing, but I would say the ISAs with the follow-up calls and the neighborhood letters and the invitations that we put in the mail.
Yeah. By the way, we've had a ton of questions on our chat. I wanted some of the questions I feel that we're answering, so we're not gonna address them.
Okay.
Because we're answering them as we go. Toby asked how we find developers and builders, and Toby, I think we did cover that pretty well earlier. With that said, do any of you guys have any advice for an agent looking for developer and builder business?
I would say, one of the things that what we used to do with our buyers agents so we could have a pipeline of new construction is we were pulling permits to see, who was breaking ground. So we'd have a list of all of those projects in that pipeline, even if they weren't our projects or our listings. And then, our buyer's agent can go around and, show them all these projects that are coming up that, they're, going to be completed within, 2 to 3 months. That's one way we created sort of inventory of off market for our buyer's agents of new construction stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. Anyone else have anything to add? I do. I have one sentence. Everyone get their pen and paper out. You ready? This is how you get builders, especially if you're in an urban market. Find them land. 3 words. Find them land. That's how you get builders in Seattle anyway. That's how you get builders in Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, any of the major markets. Find them good land, especially infill builders that are looking for teardowns and assemblages. And an assemblage is when you might be able to buy 2 adjacent houses that are teardowns, maybe, and get 3 or 4 lots out of those. I also heard, I don't know if you guys were astute enough to hear it, Nicole and Bentley both mentioned rezones. So anytime we're going into low density rezones or any of that in a particular neighborhood, it's a great time to target. Their value just went up because all the builders want to build high density townhome.
Yeah. We just listed a 75 unit townhome community that was it was a big office park, and they're converting that now into townhomes because the office parks are going away.
So. Wow. I wonder, I hadn't even thought about that. That might be something.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Bentley, Jacqueline has a great question. I agree, Jacqueline. That's a really good question. You shared one example of criteria that you pull from title, and that's a low improvement value. Any other criteria that you look for when you're pulling title lists or when you're pulling lists from any sources?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. There's equity, who's owned properties for a while. I think right now with things that are going on in Seattle politically and, the rental market, and people maybe defaulting or tenants, I think that's probably a list I might pull where somebody's owned a property, they're probably in their late 50s, 60s or something. They've owned it for 30 years. And it's like, why am I dealing with this? And I guarantee a lot of those sellers or owners are thinking like that. So that might be a list I might pull right now, just because it's not easy being a landlord. So you can see how long they've owned the property for. Some databases, you can see their age. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff out there, but that's a criteria as far as owner or landlords and how long they've owned it for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just being really in tune to the political climate and the economic climate and what's happening in the market. I mean, that's really the thing I'm getting out of you, Bentley. You really do the upfront work and you really understand the markets you work. That's what I'm really taking away today. And then you're just finding the tools to get you the data and the information you need to fuel you to do your process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jacqueline Smith is on fire, probably should be my co-host today. Another great question. She's like, I want to hear from more of all of you guys on your first steps when getting started. So, one follow-up question she had is, what's one thing you learned the hard way that you wish you had known when you were kind of starting off trying to find off-market inventory? Sue, what about you? What do you wish you would have known when you started your workshops?
Well, it's funny when you talk about off-market inventory. I think back to when I first moved to New Jersey and I had no listings and I had a buyer, right? Because, from the website, I would actually send out letters to neighborhoods to find houses for my buyers. So actually, that's how I started my business. So I'm thinking, well, what I've done differently, it's actually how I started it when I look back on that. And that's how I would then get a listing, because I would send out the letters and then get more buyers. And so kind of build it that way. Sort of how I just like my brain works. Yeah.
What about your workshops? So I am curious, what kind of tough lessons did you do up front? Where did you really screw up when you started those?
The intent of the workshop was I was going on way too many listing appointments and repeating myself and getting so tired of saying the same thing over and over again. So, and plus I have other listing agents on the team now. So the fact that I could just really do the presentation in front of so many more people and such a huge time saver. And those people were also then on the workshop calls with me. I would say having Lori and Amy and other agents on my team on the workshop, and having Chris, who handles the transaction management, having the team on there has made a huge difference. Also, not having vendors, because you lose control. Again, it's about keeping control of the client. I want to be able to set up the appointment with the stager. I want to be able to set up the appointment with the declutterer person or whoever it is. If they want a pre-inspection, I want Chris to be able to handle the pre-inspection. So I would say that the biggest mistake would be to not do those things. Also, to not have a follow-up plan in place. So it has to be it's not just you have the workshop and you call the next. It's not that. It is a long-term plan with this. They're now on your client party list. They're on your Pi Day list. They're on whatever it is that you're doing, the ISA calls. And that is honestly the most important thing, because they just become part of your database, but some of them are a couple years out even, but they do come around. It's amazing. Like, we've been doing that for 2.5 years. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but they're significant for sure.
Yeah, they are significant. I've watched you grow and develop with them. Nicole, where did you really screw up early on?
Honestly, like kind of what Sue was just talking about, you have to be really good with the follow-up and keeping track of all of these. And I feel like my first year, I thought I had it all in my brain and I could easily connect people. I'd take little notes here and there. And I've closed so much more now that I have an actual system and an actual list and follow-up plan versus just kind of connecting people by the, on the fly. So I think I dropped a lot of business I could have had from not being more disciplined and organized.
That's a good life lesson. I share that. That's definitely one of my fails for sure. Bentley, what about you?
Yeah, I think that they're both spot on. Just having a plan and being organized and being consistent. For when I started out just doing retail business and farming, you sort of send out a couple things, 3 or 4 months, you're like, I'm not getting anything. And then you sort of want to stop. And I think it's just, it will come. You just have to be consistent and stay the plan, and so, we try to send stuff out like depending on what it is, maybe every, 6 weeks or something like that, they'll get something different from us. But just be consistent, have a plan, and then, it can go into this bucket. If it's not going to work for your buyer, then maybe, just have a plan with it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Bentley, how do you handle commission with these? Do you build it on top of a net price that you negotiate with your buyer, or do you bake commission into whatever price that you set with your buyer to give to your builders?
I do both.
Okay.
So I always ask for a commission because it doesn't hurt to ask. And if they say no, then I'll say, okay. But, what we do is we don't have a listing agreement. We're the buyer. So we have, a purchase and sale agreement that's an assignable contract. And sometimes it has a commission in there. We try to get a commission in there because we're hopefully perceiving that people are, we use it also as a negotiating tool as well. So we ask for it. I would say we get it a third of the time, but our market's super competitive here. And, and then we assign the contractor or whatever. So we can sort of run pro formas on the development, and we know what kind of spread or what people are willing to pay. And we don't really base it off of percentages. We base it off of what do we think we can get.
Yeah, and that just reminded me, for those of you guys in infill markets like we are here, one of the questions that's on my list that I ask builders and developers when I'm calling, when I'm kind of cold or warm calling them, is I ask what their ratios are. I say, when you're looking for land, and I'll name my neighborhoods and I'll say, what's your ratio? So in Seattle, it can be 2.7, 2.8, 2.9, 2.6, depending on the price point. And what that means is that if they pay $500,000 for the land, they would expect a finished product of around 1.4 million, or whatever that number is. So I think it's really good, and it goes on my spreadsheet. I think it's really good to know what the ratios are, and they'll vary. I mean, if they're buying land at a million or 1.5 million, it's going to probably be a lower ratio, like in Medina for all of us local people, or whatever. So understanding what their number is a super quick mental, because you can be in a neighborhood meeting with a homeowner and they're negotiating with you. And if you can, I just 3 times it in my head in Seattle and a lot of neighborhoods. And I'll go, all right, yeah, I think we can pretty easily get a finished product sale of 1.6 here. And so I know that I'm kind of in the target zone. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I think it changes when, I look at it the same way, but it's different. So if something sells for a million, right now it's probably, 20% of that or 25%. As the market sort of, and I've been in a couple cycles, the last one and this one. So, when it's sort of at this, I don't know if this is the bottom or where we're at now, but, when people are conservative, costs are up, it's 20, 25%. And then when the market is like really active with builders and developers, I haven't seen more than a third, as far as what people will pay.
Oh, 100%. Sue, what about New Jersey? It's got to be the same there.
It's a very tight market right now. So, the builders are what's happening is the builders are actually missing out. When those actually hit the market, the builders are missing out on those because the end users are now willing to pay more than the builders.
Yeah.
So that's what we're finding. And it's interesting that you're doing a lot of those off market. Those are the ones where, well, we have done some estate sales that way, I would say, that I'd nurtured for a while. But those are the ones where because they're so savvy and they're not living there, so it's not an inconvenience for these. These are vacant houses, usually estate sales. They usually want to play the market because they're not living there. It's not an inconvenience for them. So I would definitely say most of those would hit the market versus in our area, and they're getting really good prices from end users, more so than the builders.
Oh, I think they would hit the market here too. It's the same set of challenges here.
Yeah.
So do you, when you're finding off-market properties like this, it sounds like you're negotiating commission up front, where the homeowner is paying them almost like a non-exclusive or an exclusive listing agreement. Is that
Correct.
accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nicole, what about you? How are you handling commission?
It's both, like Bentley. Sometimes it's assignment fees and things, but I always try to get the commission on the front end, but sometimes they won't, or the margins are too tight, or you're going to get list backs and you want to make the deal happen. So you're not going to, make your buyer pay you a fee when you're already going to get the list backs, and the seller is at the top that they can let it go for. So yeah, if it's more of a retail type thing, I always get commission. But if it's going to be list backs and stuff, I am happy to let that fee on the front end go. And I would say to people, newer agents with wanting to work with developers and builders, really learning what the developers and builders think are deals and what they would pay. And so you're not sending them garbage. And, a lot of my top guys say they have hundreds of agents sending them stuff every day, but a lot of it, 90% of it's like worthless, right? And so they're really honing in, like, who's sending them a true deal, who knows the market, who knows what actually is something they're going to want, and learning all of that so you can bring value to them and get in front of them. So that's huge.
For sure. I absolutely agree. And understanding how they're going to structure the deal, where their financing is going to come from, getting a clear understanding what that's going to look like, so that when you're talking to a potential seller, homeowner, you can have the conversation. I've got one investor who will close in 2 weeks because that they use hard money or they have cash. Some of your guys don't want to close until they have permits. And so those are different conversations. Those are 6 month, 9-month closings, or short plats. So there's all sorts of different variations on how builders acquire land. And there's always a buyer and a seller who you can bring together. It's just like Bentley said, it's just timing. So everybody, we went a little over today because I felt like it was so content rich and this is such a needed topic. But we're going to wrap up because it's 5 after the hour. Bentley Pugh, Nicole Dankworth, and Sue Adler, thank you so much for sharing really the secret sauce to your businesses today. You guys shared a lot. We are really grateful. And to all of our Wednesday webinar watchers and listeners, goodbye for the year. We will be back on Wednesday, January 6th at noon Pacific time. We are back. We're coming in 2021. I want everybody here to have a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, anything that you celebrate. Please stay safe. Please stay healthy. And thank you for all of your support this year. We really appreciate you. Bye, everybody.